Okay, so for this week we had more questions to do with the American South. Our first question is, having read Eudora Welty, Flannery O'Connor, and William Faulkner, what are your thoughts on how each of them depict the American South? So the two stories we read from Welty was the first one was A Visit of Charity, and this was about a girl, a girl named Marion that was with this group called the Campfire Girls, which seemed to be like a Girl Scout kind of deal. And she went to this old lady's home to get a badge or points to her little group. So she had to go to the old lady's home and spend time with some of the ladies there. I didn't really understand, I understand, while I was reading it, but I don't really understand the point of this story, really, because, the title says A Visit of Charity, and, she wasn't really just doing it out of charity, out of the goodness of her house. It was mainly just for the points, because, she really didn't do too well with the two older ladies she was talking to. She wasn't really getting into deep conversation with them or do anything too kind, except for bringing them a plant, which the only reason she did that was to get more points. So I don't really know if it has to do something with the whole American South thing. The only thing that I could really think of, and it may not even be right, is if Welty was if this girl was from more modern times in the South, and because in those days, in the American South days, Confederates and stuff, respecting your elders was a really big deal, and so maybe this is trying to show how in modern times maybe that same respect isn't held, maybe. The other story was called A Worn Path, and it was about this older woman, Phoenix, and this story was mainly about, it just described her long journey to the town to get medicine for her son. It talked a lot about, she talked out loud about a lot of the animals that maybe she'd run across and things like that, and it was just really descriptive about where she was, how she was passing through really rural areas and forests and streams and cotton fields and everything that you think about when you think of the kind of environment in the South. She came across after she fell down the ditch from the white dog, she came across a white hunter, and talking between them, the hunters would called her just what they called black people back in those days. So, you could tell that it was back in that time. So, in this story, Welty really described the South and as what the landscape looked like and what was common to see, all the force and the animals they would come across. One of the other writers, Faulkner, wrote the story, Rose for Emily, and this story was about this old woman in this town that passed away. and the whole story was about her. First I'll read some things that kind of stood out to me that I took notes on from this story. Towards the beginning it said, men went to Miss Grierson's house out of respect while women just went out of curiosity. So that kind of jumped out at me because it's showing men being the respectful ones, and then it's acting like women were just nosy and kind of trying to get in other people's business. And so that might have been how they thought in the South back then of women. The next thing was, only a man of Colonel Sartoris's generation could have invented the idea, which is, he's talking about how the Sartoris guy didn't make Emily or her family pay taxes. And then it said, and only a woman could have believed it. So it's just, again, kind of throwing another kind of slur to women. Another thing that you could tell that was like a southern piece of race. The lady said Miss Emily would not think seriously of Homer Barron because he was a northerner and a daily laborer. So, because Emily's supposed to be a real southern, like kind of fancy, respected woman, and so there's no way that she'd be with a northerner, they're saying, and especially one that's just a day laborer, like he's nothing special, just a normal worker. And then another point that was made in this story was how important a family member and kin is. And he talks about said kin is important because it was a big deal for Emily to have her kin with her when she wasn't doing well, and when she passed, it was important for her kin to be there. So Faulkner's view was kind of more like, it kind of said how that men were respectful and women were just curious. So it was kind of the idea of how men and women were different. Like, he kind of explains that in some of it. It talks about how family was important in the South, and the difference in Southern and Northerners. So then we have O'Connor and how she depicted it, and from A Good Man Is Hard to Find, the grandma was the Southern woman that was like pretty set in her ways and had a real strong opinion how times used to be so much better back when the South was like the Confederate South, how it was a lot better then. The next question says, do you feel that the South is indeed a unique part of America? And I think I do, because especially in those times like the Confederate days and things, the North and South were in a lot of ways so different that it was almost like being in two different countries, almost like how different they acted in some ways. Like, regards to South was all agricultural, was mainly agriculture. The North was mainly industry, and just their different views about how each of them viewed respect, and North and South viewed differently on respect and what was right and what was wrong. So I do feel that it is a unique part of America.